The stale scent of burnt toast still clung to the air, a fitting metaphor, I thought, for our marriage. Another morning, another rushed apology from Mark as he fumbled with his tie, already sweating, already late for the job he claimed he worked so hard at. He was always working, always busy, always tired. And for what? So I could live in this house with this car, wearing these clothes that were fine, I supposed, but hardly what I deserved. He kissed my cheek, a soft, almost apologetic peck. "Have a good day, love," he mumbled, already halfway out the door. Love. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. Did he even know what love was? Did he know what I needed? From my perspective, I was a woman born for more. More luxury, more excitement, more adoration. When I met Mark, he had potential. He was steady, reliable, and frankly, a bit too eager to please. I saw it then, and I saw it as a good thing. A man who would work hard to provide for me. But somewhere along the line, providing had become barely scraping by, and eager to please had morphed into a complete doormat. Our home, this suburban box he'd insisted we buy, felt less like a sanctuary and more like a gilded cage. Every perfectly placed cushion, every expensive vase I'd chosen, felt tainted by his persistent, understated presence. He admired my taste, of course, always saying how I made the house a home. But he never truly saw the effort, the genius that went into curating my environment. He just paid the mortgage, and even then, he acted like it was some Herculean feat. The man literally works in accounting. His biggest challenge is probably matching numbers in a spreadsheet. Every day was a fresh disappointment. He'd come home, eyes glazed over with fatigue, talking about his spreadsheets or some idiotic project. I'd listen or pretend to, while my mind wandered to the boutique dress I couldn't justify, or the lavish vacation my friend Sarah just took to Bali. Sarah's husband wasn't some clerk. He was an investment banker, and Sarah lived like a queen. Why couldn't Mark be more like that? It wasn't my fault. I'd given him everything. My beauty, my presence, my refined taste. I was a vision even on a bad day, and what did he offer in return? A comfortable but uninspired existence. He'd buy me flowers sometimes, cheap supermarket bouquets that wilted within days. He'd try to cook dinner, usually something bland and unimaginative. And when I'd offer a polite suggestion, maybe a little more salt, darling, or this isn't quite the culinary experience I was hoping for, he'd shrink like a dog caught doing something wrong. It was pathetic, honestly. He'd start stammering, apologizing profusely. "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey, I'll try better next time. I thought you liked the chicken." As if my preferences were some complex mathematical equation he couldn't quite grasp. The sheer lack of self-respect was mind-boggling. Take for instance last Tuesday. I had a particularly draining afternoon at the salon. You know, maintaining this perfect shade of blonde isn't easy, and my stylist was being insufferable. I came home expecting some semblance of comfort, maybe even a glass of chilled wine waiting for me. Instead, Mark was sprawled on the couch, watching some documentary about ancient pottery. Pottery. When he saw me, he flinched as if caught doing something illicit. "Hey honey, long day?" he mumbled, his eyes still glued to the screen. I just stared at him. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Not a single cushion fluffed, no lights dimmed, no soothing music playing. "It was fine, Mark," I said, my voice carefully flat. "Just hoping for a bit of a welcome." He immediately scrambled up, bumping into the coffee table. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I get you anything? Water? Wine? I can turn on some music." It was always reactive, never proactive. Always me having to tell him what to do, how to be. A constant emotional labor I was forced to perform. My friends were my sanctuary. Jen, with her sharp wit and even sharper tongue, was always ready to tear down the male species with me. Chloe, softer and more traditionally feminine, but just as prone to her own marital grievances, provided the sympathetic ear. We'd meet for brunch or evening drinks, and the conversation would inevitably drift to our husbands, or rather, their failings. "He just doesn't get it," I'd lament over Chardonnay, twisting my hair around my finger. I mean, I asked him for a new handbag, a simple designer one, nothing extravagant. The limited edition Chanel flat bag. It was a classic. And he hemmed and hawed about budget and responsibilities. My responsibilities? I manage this whole house. I coordinate all his social engagements, even when he just wants to sit home and read about historical battles. I deal with his dull stories every night. Is a decent handbag too much to ask? My voice would rise with indignation, and I'd feel a genuine tremor of self-pity. Jen would nod sympathetically, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her glass. Men are all the same, honey. Always promising the moon, delivering dirt. Mine just bought a new golf club, probably costs more than your handbag. Says it's for networking. More like avoiding the housework if you ask me. Her eyes would twinkle, and I'd feel a rush of camaraderie. Chloe would chime in, her brow furrowed. Mine's just a glorified roommate. He leaves his dirty clothes next to the hamper, not in it. It's like living with a large unkempt child. At least yours brings in a paycheck, even if it's not enough. A meager paycheck, I'd correct, sighing dramatically. He tries, I guess, in his own sad little way. He even got a promotion last month, which meant an extra $100 maybe. $100? What am I supposed to do with that? Buy a fancy coffee? It's insulting. He works so hard, he says, but for what? To keep us stagnant? I feel like I'm constantly sacrificing for him for this comfortable life, and he just takes. My youth, my potential, my dreams of a truly glamorous existence. All squandered on him and his spreadsheet fantasies. I'd never outright lied to them about how miserable I was, but I certainly embellished. Every small slight became a grand betrayal. Every minor inconvenience a monumental cross to bear. It was exhausting living this life of constant dissatisfaction, always needing to justify my feelings, to prove that I was the one suffering. He never saw it. He just kept trying, kept working, kept being his bland beta self. A beta pussy, honestly. He just rolled over, taking whatever I dished out. And I dished out plenty because he deserved it. He deserved it for not being enough. For not being the man I deserved, the man who would sweep me into a life of effortless luxury, the way I saw other women living. The way his eyes would soften when I asked him to run an errand for me, or the way he'd nod earnestly as I explained my latest fashion dilemma, completely missing the point but pretending to understand. It used to be endearing. Now it was just infuriating. It was weakness. A lack of conviction. He was like a puppy, constantly seeking approval, constantly trying to please, and it made him utterly unattractive. I just wanted him to do things without needing a gold star, without needing a participation trophy for merely existing. Then came the week Mark announced his work trip. A full 5 days in Seattle. His company was sending him for some advanced training, which I secretly suspected was just code for, we're making our lowest performing employees attend a mandatory morale-boosting seminar. He was so excited talking about the networking opportunities and how it could really boost his career. I just nodded, feigning enthusiasm. 5 days. 5 glorious days of no hushed footsteps, no endless droning about work, no pathetic attempts at conversation. It was like a weight had been lifted. The air in the house suddenly felt lighter, the silence less oppressive. I spent the first 2 days doing exactly what I wanted: long baths, reality TV binges, ordering expensive takeout without having to hear him comment on the price. By Wednesday, I was buzzing with a delicious sense of freedom. I planned a girls' night immediately. Jen and Chloe were thrilled. They always loved coming over. My house, despite its occupant, was still the most aesthetically pleasing of our group. The wine flowed freely. Expensive bottles, of course. The candles flickered, casting a warm glow over our faces. We started, as usual, with light-hearted complaints about our men. Oh, Steve left his socks next to the hamper again. And I swear he sheds more than the dog. Jen groaned, rolling her eyes. Chloe laughed, her voice a little slurred already. Mine tried to fix the leaky faucet and flooded the bathroom. We're still drying out the rug. And he had the audacity to ask me to hold the flashlight for him, like I'm his personal assistant for amateur plumbing. It was all in good fun, harmless jabs. But then they turned to me, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. They knew my grievances ran deeper, were more profound. So what's Mark been up to on his big important business trip? Jen prompted, a mischievous grin playing on her lips. And something in me snapped. All the pent-up resentment, all the quiet disappointments, all the things I could never say to his face for fear of him just crumbling, it all came bubbling to the surface. The wine loosened my tongue, but the words were true. My truth. Mark. I scoffed, taking a long sip of Cabernet, letting the warmth spread through me. Oh, you mean my glorified ATM who dispenses only small bills and occasionally a crumpled receipt? Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. I leaned forward, my voice dropping conspiratorially, but loud enough for them to catch every word. He's just so dull. Like watching paint dry, but the paint never actually dries. It just stays wet and boring, and sometimes it drips onto the floor and you have to clean it up. He has no spark, no ambition beyond making sure his pie charts are perfectly aligned. It's soul-crushing. Jen and Chloe giggled, egging me on. And I felt a surge of power. This was it. This was my moment to truly vent, to exorcise the demon of Mark from my system. I swear, if I had known what I was getting into, I would have run for the hills. My mother always said to marry for potential, and he had it, I thought. But it was like a seed that just never bloomed. Marry him again? Never in a million years. I'd rather be a nun. At least then I'd have some peace and quiet, and no one asking me if I liked their new spreadsheet format, or trying to tell me about the historical significance of some obscure battlefield. I mimicked his voice, a high-pitched, whiny drone, clutching my chest dramatically. They burst into laughter, tears streaming down Jen's face. And kids, I continued, leaning back, a cruel smirk on my face, the words tasting like sweet freedom. Don't even get me started on kids. He keeps dropping hints, talking about our future family, showing me pictures of ugly babies he sees on social media. But God, I can't even stomach the thought. Imagine having a child with his genes. All that mediocrity. I shivered dramatically, making them laugh even harder. His receding hairline, his nervous throat clearing, his penchant for beige sweaters. Could you imagine passing that on? My genes are practically pristine. I'm not going to dilute them with that. Honestly, I confessed, my voice barely a whisper, a secret shared. I've been on birth control since our honeymoon, and he's none the wiser. I just tell him I'm stressed, or that it's just not happening, or that my cycles are irregular. He buys it every time. He's so naive. As if I'd ever want to happen to have a baby that inherited his weak chin or his nervous habit of clearing his throat every 5 seconds. Ruin my genetics? Please. I have standards. I have a legacy to uphold. And it certainly doesn't involve mini-marks. I was on a roll, feeling lighter than I had in years. Every word was a delicious release. Each cruel joke about Mark a feather falling from my shoulders. Jen and Chloe were roaring with laughter, clinking glasses with me, validating every single complaint. I felt seen. I felt understood. It felt right. This was what I deserved. To be able to speak my truth, to be celebrated for it. Instead of having to coddle some man-child's fragile ego, or pretend that his paltry efforts were anything more than just that, paltry. He's just so spineless. I continued, warming up to my grand finale, standing up and pacing slightly. He just lets me walk all over him, takes whatever I dish out. If I tell him I don't like the color of a shirt he's wearing, he'll change it instantly. If I complain about the temperature, he'll adjust the thermostat without a word. There's no fight, no pushback, no manhood. Honestly, it's pathetic. I wish he'd just grow a backbone. Or better yet, just disappear. Less clutter, you know? Less beta energy contaminating my space. My voice was loud now, full of a bitter, triumphant glee. My laughter mingled with theirs, loud and unrestrained. The house, usually so stifling with his quiet presence, felt alive, vibrant. This was my space, my rules. Then the front door clicked. The laughter died in my throat. Jen and Chloe froze, their smiles fading into confused frowns. The sound was too distinct, too close. Mark. But he wasn't supposed to be back until Friday. My mind raced, trying to find an excuse, a plausible lie, but my wine-soaked brain came up empty. My heart hammered against my ribs, not with fear, but with a sudden hot surge of indignation. How dare he? How dare he interrupt my night, my moment of peace and honesty? Typical Mark, always ruining things, always inconveniencing me. He stepped into the living room, his carry-on bag still clutched in one hand, his face pale and drawn. His eyes, usually so soft and unassuming, were wide with a raw, wounded agony I'd never seen before. They darted from me to Jen, to Chloe, then back to me, filled with a silent, devastating accusation. The remnants of my cruel smirk probably still clung to my lips. Mark. I managed, my voice suddenly small, hollow. The perfect hostess facade had crumbled. What are you doing home? He didn't answer immediately. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, looking like a little boy who just had his favorite toy snatched away, and then smashed to pieces. His gaze lingered on me, on the wine glass in my hand, on the evidence of my betrayal. I missed my connecting flight, he mumbled, his voice raspy, barely audible, as if each word was a splinter tearing through his throat. Got an earlier one. Came straight home. His eyes were still on me, but they seemed to look through me now, seeing not his wife but some monstrous stranger. He didn't say anything else. Didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't even look angry, which somehow was worse. Just broken. And I hated him for it. Hated him for making me feel uncomfortable. Hated him for being such a beta pussy that he couldn't even react properly, couldn't even give me a decent fight or a dramatic exit. What was I supposed to do? Apologize? For speaking my mind? For being honest? For wanting more than his pathetic offerings? He turned slowly, almost mechanically, and walked back out the door, the click of it closing echoing in the sudden, suffocating silence of the room. Jen and Chloe stared at me, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. Pity? For me. How dare they? I was the one who just had her privacy invaded, her catharsis destroyed. The next few days were a blur of his silence and my simmering rage. He didn't come back into the house that night. He stayed somewhere else, probably some cheap hotel, wallowing in his self-pity. When he finally did return, it was only to pack a small bag. He barely looked at me. His usual quiet subservience had been replaced by a chilling emptiness. There were no arguments, no raised voices. Just a profound, heavy quiet. He moved out a week later. The divorce papers came quickly after that. There was no grand confrontation, no shouting match, no dramatic declarations. He just gave up. Like he always did. Typical. He couldn't even handle a proper divorce. Just folded as expected. And honestly, good riddance. It was probably for the best. I deserve a man who can actually appreciate me, who understands what it takes to provide for a woman of my caliber. He clearly couldn't hack it. He was too weak, too soft, too much of a beta pussy. And now that he's gone, I can finally breathe. I'm free. And if he thinks I did anything wrong, he's delusional. I was just being honest. And isn't honesty supposed to be the best policy? It's not my fault he couldn't handle the truth. I'm just a woman who knew her worth.